Alright, we are back. Hello, everyone. Let's see. We were on, I believe, Tears Summits. Ouch. Ouch, 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 ouch. Hmm? Oh, this is the old work. Why is... I did click... Tears Summons. Tear meets a team. Old work. Yeah, I hit Tears Summons. Huh. I must have misclicked. There we go. Can't have coffee tonight. Need to make sure I get to sleep at a good time. That sucks. Do, 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 do. Okay, sorry for the delay. Realized my glasses had gotten a little bit dusty from work today. Hello and welcome in, Justin. Oh, in case you haven't seen it, I did make that writing section, so you may post your thoughts as you requested. You have a spot for that. The description kind of has my intent for that line, so please read it, but overall, the section's been made up. Let's see. No, that's back to old work. What? Old work, yeah. Why? No. Tier summons. Okay, so this is after. And then going up. Okay, so it's at the right spot. S or T. Oh, I just scrolled too far. There we go. No, whenever I close it, it's going to a different section. That's what's going on. That is very weird. Interesting. Let's try this again, because I want to see what's troubleshooting with this. Alright, so tier summons. Yep, and then close. And now it's back to old work. Okay, I'm not going crazy. Why is it doing that? I'll have to look into that. Alright. Now, that I'm at the right section, let's catch up on where my thoughts were. 2 hours after my departure, I was enjoying a cup of wake-up juice. I prefer to take mine with a sweet infusion. The combination with the drink's warmth was always a subtle but soothing comfort. I did have to be careful not to... This is my writing channel. Okay. Indulge, however. Bad habits are detrimental to any position of importance, regardless of how little consequence they may have upon one's health. Discipline in the lesser allows the denial of the greater. I do not remember anymore where I first came across that adage, but I have carried it with me ever since, so this is worthy. I'll have to come back to it later. Technology can make up for the indulgences of prosperous living, but it cannot, at least without the effort of the user, maintain a lifestyle of drive and focus. My internal reasons. There we go. This is late book. Also, this is late book just was the... Hang on. This is late... What? Okay. Not really sure what you're trying to say there, actually. Bring that down further. Should probably put this before. One moment. Hello, first time chatter. Angie Belly, I think. Angie Belly. Welcome in. Hello right back to you. I hope you're having a great day. Okay, my writing in my Google Doc that I posted in the Discord takes place late into the book's story. Ah, gotcha. That makes more sense. Okay. Do. Hmm. I am. I hope you are too. So, what is this book that you are writing? This is Tales of the Ambassador. It is less a book and more likely going to be a compilation of short stories and series based around. This main one, The Tales of the Ambassador, though, is the closest it has to its main series, where it tells the story of the first contact between the Federation of Space-born Sapients, or the Federation of Allied Species. I'm not really sure which one I went with, because I've had a couple of drafts. I think I have it somewhere up here. You know you're bad with names when you forget your own designations. That's a short. Okay, so this is going back down to the humans. United Peoples of Soul. Federation Chief of Diplomacy. Okay. I don't... Well, for now, you can just think of them as the Federation. As they look to integrate humanity into them. And the story will continue on to follow kind of an HFY sub sci-fi pattern, where humanity consistently and regularly breaks expectations of the Federation and becomes more and more integral, a more and more integral member of the galactic community. Bring their perspective as a species that brought their planet to the brink and then brought it back from the brink of destruction. So that's kind of the overarching storyline. But the emphasis is mostly going to be the interactions between the kind of characters and, delegates, with, some comedy aspects being put in from the cultural differences, and HFY factors coming in from like some sparring matches between the soldiers, like war games, and maybe I haven't decided if there's going to be an attack from a third party or if they'll use like simulations. But there will be there will be a lot of examples where humanity is kind of like stands out in a somewhat positive way, though somewhat terrifying for the Federation. just because that was the origin of this series, and I feel like I should keep it to that. And I started it back in a time where I got really caught up in HFY stories. The series itself is actually like 3 or so years old for me, but I took a long break because I got overwhelmed by content creation and I needed to kind of refocus on life for a while. Yes. In essence, Tales of the Ambassador is an HFY story. It's not really a typical HFY because it's not as focused on combat and it's not like the it's not its super main thing. I wanted to write a kind of like developed story versus just, oh, humanity, hoorah, etc., which I still really enjoyed those ones, but there was a big one in the HFY series that kind of went for a very long time. I think it eventually got discontinued by its author. But it started with an invasion, a rather generic HFY tale, where this invasion by like alien hunters came to Earth to take prisoners and slaves or whatever. And they landed in a hockey arena and just got destroyed. And the series went on and it kept growing and developing itself. And I really, really enjoyed it. And it was one of the big ones to inspire me. And it became not an inspiration per se, because Tales of Ambassador is somewhat different in a lot of ways. But trying to create that grander, more fleshed out story, even in something as fun and kind of short and simple as an HFY, was the inspiration. So I wanted to kind of like take it with that direction originally. And then I made a whole bunch of plots and I did not mix them well, in my opinion. And I burnt myself out and wrote myself into a corner, and life happened. And we're back to old work. Why do I keep going to old work? There we go. Thank you. For a lot of the story, I'm probably going to try to put off space combat for a while, just because I'm still piecing together how I want to write it. But humanity's strong suit in particular, especially early on, is going to be stealth in space and shock in infantry or in ground. So when you see the combat stories for sparring matches, cybernetic augmentation is already very commonplace. Hello, Stephanie. Welcome back in. I hope you're having an amazing day. Humanity, by the Federation standards, both as a planet-born species, meaning one that has not spent a great deal of time living in space, which tends to devolve physical strength because everything is tailored and optimized towards the body. So spaceborne species tend to live long lives, and are very comfortable, but they're not generally hardy. Whereas planetborns, who have not, as a species, spent too much time up in space, or species that... Write more along the lines of fantasy rather than sci-fi, but what are some elements of sci-fi that you try to incorporate into your own writing? Right, gotcha. Um, well, my two favorite genres are sci-fi and fantasy, but for science fiction, what I try to focus on, because I don't want to go too far into it, because I'm not like a prodigy or a doctor in physics or anything. Um, I want my science fictions to feel wondrous, to have that same charm as kind of fantasy, but based around technology instead of magic. But I want them to also feel grounded. Like, I don't feel like it detracts from the story if you can't, like, quote unquote, hear the lasers because of the vacuum of space. I really enjoy seeing science fiction where there's this really grand space battle and all of this stuff is going on, and then you have these paragraphs from the pilot's perspective, and it's just dead silence with everything outside. All they can hear is the internal whirring of the engines as they fly through, as their blood pumps and the G forces hit them. I think that's really cool to see, and I don't usually see it in science fiction, particularly not in modern science fiction. I also kind of like seeing it pushing the realms of like these hyper destructive weaponries and how people approach it. So I have that on one side where I really enjoy it, but I also really like dumb stuff for science fiction like Warhammer 40k, which is kind of the polar opposite. So I respect the rule of cool, but I also respect grounding my stories in a sense of reality. We'll see how it goes for Tales of the Ambassador, but I think I'm going to keep the space battles grounded, and the more infantry battles kind of like with a splash of rule of cool in it, because it's an HFY, to kind of keep them feeling separate. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So a story that is whimsical and serene, yet adrenaline pumping and alive. Yes, different sections will have different feels to them, I suppose. Mr. DeCat, welcome in. How is your day going? Elite Dangerous tackles this, the audible weapon fire in space, by having the ships interpret energy waves and translate it into sounds. That's an interesting approach. I don't think I'll incorporate it into the main space battles, but I'm gonna find it hilarious if I put that in for like a simulation thing that someone made for like and tweaked the code themselves, and someone's just like, why can I hear lasers and other stuff going on? It's a vacuum, you can't. Well, I modified the system. I can understand that. Heck, I get intimidated by the world building on it sometimes. There's a lot to cover, and it feels like there's so much to cover that it's hard to put it in the context without leaving something out or getting too wordy. But I guess I don't want to give up on the challenge I put for myself. I've already put so much time into the story. Maybe it's the sunken cost fallacy, but I don't want to drop it. And over time, the world building has expanded to the point where I've really developed into it. So I think it's going all right for it. With the one short story I have like this, I don't know, I'd probably make it up as I go along. Well, how so? That means different things for different people. Maybe use D&D solo GM tools to help. I'm assuming that's mainly use D&D solo GM tools to help me make it up, or just go with my gut. Suppose that could work for a short story. Are you enjoying how it's coming out? There we go. It is one of my many sides, so it's not a focus at the moment, though it's okay so far. Well, nice. It is inspired by Ground Control 2. I am not familiar with Ground Control 2. D&D is D&D. Well, space is a vacuum that has one atmo of felt pressure. Astral sea. Yeah, no, I mean D&D is definitely D&D. Oh, no worries, Justin. Well, thank you for the alert. A video game that shows your age. Okay, hang on. Ground Control 2. Operation Exodus. Okay. Wow, that game looks like it would have been right up my alley. I'm a little bit bummed I didn't know about it. Graphics aren't too terribly bad considering when it came out either. Okay, hang on. I love describing the senses when writing. For example, in Space Battle, I describe the sonic pulse of the lasers as they gaze past the ships. How the ships shudder in response to the aftershock. How the crews cling with anxiety onto the ship's dash, or the guns they're manning, the thick tension in the air that could be cut with a knife. Intimidating imagery of the enemy ships swallowing up their view and body. I love that stuff, Angie. I absolutely love it. Though for me, my preference is I love it even more when you don't hear like the stuff outside the ship. It's all like, how to describe it? It feels like a submarine principle. I know it's not a perfect analogy, but you're seeing all of this stuff happening outside, but it doesn't have that same sound impact. It feels so much more gravity in a way because it feels unnatural that you can't hear it because of that barrier. All this stuff is happening inside and all this stuff is happening outside, but you can't get any auditory feedback, and I feel like it adds to this grand sense of suspense. Speaking of wild space and the astral sea, I am in the beginning process of making the Spelljammer campaign. Congratulations. The solo GM tool works great for me, no matter the job. Adding with my subjects. Nice. I'm not sure what the solo GM tool is, but perhaps I will have to look into it. Mythic GM emulator. Mythic GM emulator. World Mill Games. Huh. Neat. My main project is an Arthurian novel and a fanfic that's too long for my own good. That sounds interesting, actually. But yeah, I really do love that approach, Angie Belly. For sure. Interesting. Both of those actually sound pretty fun. I can't write without shutting up monkey brain with music. I'm assuming you're saying you can't write without music to help you focus, which is very understandable. I have a stylistic writing question. Have you ever considered using the M dash? I use it when I write and helps to visually break up long paragraphs, making it more reader friendly in my opinion. Comma, so it can provide variety again. I'll have to look into it more, first off. Because I have a vague knowledge of it, but I haven't used it often, so I need to double check my knowledge. Because assumptions make, etc. Oh, and that, okay, yeah. I've never really practiced with it before. I'd have to try it out in some prompts I think. I think. I can talk today. But this is the first draft. This is more for thoughts than flow. When I go back through, I tend to... My first draft is for construction. My second draft, generally, I make the flow much more comfortable for readers, and then I fine-tune my grammatical mistakes and sentence structure. Not that I don't edit the latter ones in the first revision, but that's the focus of. I'm a little tired today. I'm sorry. But, yeah, I haven't used that often. I should probably practice with it, because the M dash is pretty handy. I've just never really used it much, so it's like a specialty tool that you just become unfamiliar with over time, I suppose, for me. I don't know. I feel like that's a bad analogy. Technological advancement. Sure. It's always good to have multiple examples. I did take a look at how it's used in like Google reference and keep the tab open so I could go back over and see it in more examples. But I am more than happy to see um, practical by an actual writer versus online example. Let's go with ignore on that one. What were the other ones? Was it the Micrians? Micrians? I think so it was, yeah. The Micrians. I'm gonna have to go over all the names at some point. Decide on more final ones. I need to get like some sort of name wheel or a name idea generator for people to help, because I am so bad with names. It's not my strong suit. All right. Hmm. That would actually work. I've changed them. Yeah. Or they call it the Egregians. Yeah, the Egregian people. You know this one guy who I met on the stream now and then who kept going on about how fanfic are unoriginal and waste of time. Every time I talk about them, it gets on my nerves because I put a lot of thought in my plots with this one. Hopefully it wasn't my stream. I don't remember something like that. But... yeah, no, there's a lot of really good fanfics out there. There's a lot of, like, rough fanfics. And some I wouldn't necessarily think are that... oh, like the writing stream genre? Ah, well, no. It doesn't have to be... good writing is not constrained to a category. I've read some really exceptional fan fictions. Heck, one of the stories I wait for new chapters on with bated breath is a fan fiction. A alternate universe story of Star Wars versus Warhammer 40k by a fan with too much time. People write what they're passionate about, and sometimes we're passionate about other stories. And a skilled writer will write good works regardless of the medium when they put time, passion, and work into it. I don't really understand why a presumption would be that fan fiction is bad by nature, except I guess maybe because it generally is a place where a lot of novice writers start, because it's a place of more raw passion than anything. But saying that fan fictions can't be good is just imbecilic. It's not the same at all as saying a lot of fan fictions are unpolished or rough. Sorry for the long wait. I had to find a short example that didn't give too much away. Here is my example of the dash. I'd live. I was pretty confident of that, but I wouldn't walk away from this untouched. I was maimed, and it would scar, and it would be ugly and noticeable. No one would ever question who I was anymore. It would be the girl who went against the... I would be the girl who went against the Emperor. I see now what you're saying. It's a way to, in writing, actively make a pause for the reader. I'd live. I was pretty confident of that, but I wouldn't walk away from this untouched. That is a good tool to incorporate. A lot of my stuff is more inner monologue. I'd have to actively think on where to put it, but I do think that's something worth developing my skills on because I'm not practicing that. But I like how that affects the pacing. Though I admit to being awful when I started fanfics, I was passionate but put little time into the editing and refining process. Yeah, yeah, that's all. That's my point, Dom Dan. Mr. Decat, is that my stance, like reality, statistically speaking, a lot of fanfics aren't good because that's where a lot of writers start. But that's saying that fan fiction itself is poor writing is just imbecilic. Having a place where there's a lot of origins for writers is going to statistically have a bad percentage of quality. It's going to be harder to find the quality, but the genre itself is one of passion. I've had many really, really, really good fan fictions I've stumbled across because it's like where a writer can have just so much fun, particularly once they feel more confident in their abilities. Find something common with novel 1 first draft I start with. This is going to be perfect and I hate what? I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you're saying there, Mr. Decat. When doing first draft, I think there's going to be perfect. But then by the end of the draft, I hate myself. Ah! Alright, I see. I think that's pretty common with a lot of creators, particularly if by draft you mean quite a lot of writing, not more like page or like 5 pages by 5 pages. Something I would put into that, because at best I'm a hybrid, at worst I'm a pantser. Is it's a lesson in engineering and a lesson in coding. You don't want to go too terribly far without stopping and revising. Oh yeah, which means you're still finding your writing style. And with that being the case, there's going to be a ton of times where you're going to hate your drafts because you're growing as a writer in the middle of the draft. And you're now looking back at a beginning of something that's far less quality than you ended. And you have to remember, particularly if you're taking a pantser approach where you're not like really painstakingly creating an outline and world building prior, the world is forming in your mind as you're writing it. More and better details come with each new page. You make more refined decisions. Your characters grow with your writing. So you make this beautiful character by, say, page 100. If you're just like pumping it out in a rush of writing spree that's thought to paper, sprint, 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 and then you go back to start editing page 1 after coming 100 pages, and it looks like an abomination compared to what you've now created. Yes, Justin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And there are your 10 spots. What can happen in that case, at least if you're following a similar path to me during my earlier times, is that as you're going through the draft, you come up with rich plots that don't necessarily overlap. And because it's a draft, you're happy to put everything down to paper. And then you get to the end, and you now have so many ties and storylines that trying to put them all together in a nice clean ribbon feels impossible. And you just want to give up. Particularly because you now look back at this mountain of work to reach your end point of skill, and it no longer feels about passion. It feels like a constant dredge march of self-critiquing and cleaning and patching and breaking down and destroying, and it feels much more like a boring office job type aspect of it than this wondrous, passionate sprint of imagination. But that part of it is part of writing. Being able to go back over your work with a fine-tooth comb and take it from beautiful imagination to refined story. Yeah, 10 to 20, that sounds about right. I often have to read it out loud. Yes, very important tip is you do not want to read it silently. Reading it out loud allows you to vocally feel the cadence of your writing. It will show you grammatical points, or perhaps where it's not technically grammatically wrong, but points of issue that you want to fix because you have the story in your mind. You're not going to notice minor errors when you've already... Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Who do we want to raid today? Actually, you know what? I'm really liking this conversation. I'm going to stay on a little bit longer. I kind of want to tie this conversation up. So as that goes on, I will finish up this paragraph as well. But I think if you want to just write passionate stories and don't really enjoy the editing process, and you don't want to make like high-end writing part of your life, that it's perfectly fine to just enjoy drafts. I don't see anything wrong with people finding enjoyment, but I do think if you want to make high-end writing, like very quality prose, learning to accept the boring work and editing of writing and learning to enjoy it with the acquired taste of, like, black coffee for a lot of people, is a big integral part of the process. Because your work isn't never going to be pretty on the first draft. Never. Ever. Or at the very least, it's never going to be as far as it could be. What I generally do is I don't edit after I write. I will have days where I edit because I want to be in a different headspace. I will write, I will work out, I'll do however long it takes to get the story to completion. And if it hits a time to edit, I'll either continue on to the next section and then the next day of writing will be editing, or I'll just be done for the day. Because I don't want to go into editing with writing brain. When my brain is geared towards writing, it's geared towards creativity, construction, new expressions, world building. When I'm in editing mindset, I'm looking for structure, pacing, cadence, and how it's being expressed. I'm working on what's already there, not creating something new. So I very much do not like editing right after I've written, after I wrote. Yes, I agree with Angie. It's acquired, but it is, when you get past the frustration of critiquing your own work, it can become really satisfying. It's, I'm trying to think of a good analogy. I once, when I was younger, just because it was a way to fidget, did a Doro Dango ball. And it's a very, very long process. It's fun to fidget, but it's basically polishing dirt. And it could get very boring. I didn't really do it unless I was doing something else at the time. But by the time you're done, it looks so polished and amazing and wonderful. It gives you this grand sense of completed accomplishment. At least it does to me when I finish my editing. I haven't quite gotten to the point where I love editing, but I can feel myself getting there. And I think that's kind of a beautiful thing. And you'll get better at it in time. How you edit is up to you. So if you want to get draft a song through it, yeah. All right. And that finishes that paragraph. I find when I'm editing, the book gets longer. I find when I edit, mine will either get shorter or stay about the same. But sometimes I do expand chapters or paragraphs or whatever, because I feel like, oh, this note needs a lot more. But for me, oftentimes it gets shorter. Yeah. Some places I remove, some places I add. it allows. I love how it allows me to refine the work so much. All right, this section turned out to be so much longer than intended. Good. I did not put a paragraph bit in this. I knew this was gonna take a little bit. All right. That's gonna be it for today on that, and we are going to get ready for a raid. Oh, and Justin is already back here with the tagged ones. Thank you, Justin. So, who is on today? Coffee Quills is live. We will raid them. They are an excellent writer, streamer. We have 2 raid commands. One is subscribe for I can talk today. I promise I can talk today. One is for subscribers, the top one, and the hearts are follower global commands. You can, however, as a follower, don't have to subscribe, get the subscriber raid by using the redemption for 80 points. Choose an emote to have. I said as cheap as I could. I want raid messages to be open to everyone, but unfortunately Twitch does not allow me. I've tried it in the past. All right, so pick the raid message of your preference. As mentioned before, we will be raiding Coffee Quill. They are also a writer streamer and a developer for a game called For the Worlds. Let's give them a nice warm raid. And as I prep that up, I will do my outro. Thank you everyone so very much for coming by. I always appreciate it. I love talking to you guys while I write and meeting other writers and people in general. So thank you. You all have an amazing day and stay awesome.